Michael is 47. He has a decent salary. He contributes to retirement. He pays his bills on time. He doesn't gamble heavily. He doesn't own a yacht. He doesn't go on luxury vacations every month. And if you asked him whether he's good with money, he'd probably say, "I'm pretty careful." Then one Saturday morning, Michael does something most people almost never do. He opens 12 months of bank and credit card statements and starts looking at them line by line. Not the big purchases, the small ones. $14.99, $19.99, $27, $43, $86, $112. Payments he barely remembered, products he thought were cheaper, services he intended to cancel, upgrades he didn't actually need, convenience purchases that felt harmless because each one was only a few dollars. By the time Michael finishes, he finds something uncomfortable. He isn't losing money because of one catastrophic decision. He's losing it because of dozens of perfectly normal decisions. And when he adds up the categories he can realistically change, the number is approaching 5 figures a year. Here's the strange part. Michael doesn't feel poor. He doesn't behave recklessly. He simply stopped looking. And that raises a much more interesting question. What if the biggest threat to your wealth isn't how much you earn, but how many financial decisions you make without thinking about them anymore? Because today, we're going to follow Michael through 10 of them, and the last one may be costing him more than all the small ones combined. Let's make one thing clear. This is not a video telling you to stop buying coffee. It's not about becoming cheap, and it's definitely not about turning your life into a spreadsheet, because that's not how wealth works. The real problem is inattention. Companies don't need you to make one terrible decision. They need you to make a small decision and then stop reconsidering it. A subscription renews. A loan payment continues. A car gets traded in. A warranty gets added. A phone gets upgraded. A premium brand becomes your default. A convenience fee becomes normal. And eventually, you stop seeing those transactions as decisions. They become background noise. That's where behavioral economics becomes interesting. Because $1 you consciously choose to spend is one thing. $1 you spend because you forgot to question it is something completely different. So let's start with Michael's biggest leak. And this one has nothing to do with Netflix. Michael buys a new vehicle. Let's say his purchase price is around $46,000. The salesperson asks him, "What's a comfortable monthly payment?" Michael says, "About $700. And that sounds manageable. But notice what just happened. Michael didn't answer, "How much can I afford to spend on this vehicle?" He answered, "How much monthly payment feels comfortable?" Those are not the same question. The CFPB points out that an auto payment can include principal, interest, and optional add-ons such as gap coverage and service contracts. And AAA's latest available Your Driving Cost data shows why the sticker price is only the beginning. AAA's 2025 analysis puts the average annual cost of owning and operating a new vehicle at $11,577, or about $965 per month at 15,000 miles per year. And the largest individual ownership cost? Depreciation. AAA estimates an average $4,334 per year in lost vehicle value. But here's the part that matters. The problem isn't necessarily buying a new car. The problem is repeatedly resetting the depreciation clock. Imagine Michael buys a new vehicle. Year 1, depreciation. Year 2, more depreciation. Year 3, he sees a new model. He trades the old vehicle. Maybe he still owes money. So part of the next loan absorbs the old financial decision. Then he starts a new loan on a new depreciating asset, and the cycle begins again. Buy, depreciate, trade, finance, depreciate again. That's the leak, not the car, the reset. So Michael doesn't need to drive a 15-year-old car. He simply needs to ask a different question. If I keep this vehicle longer, what expensive financial cycle am I avoiding? AAA itself emphasizes that depreciation is a major component of vehicle ownership cost and recommends looking beyond the sticker price. Because a monthly payment tells you when the money leaves, it doesn't tell you what the purchase actually costs you. And that's exactly the same psychological trick behind the next leak. Except this time, the payment is so small, you probably don't even notice it. Michael checks his credit card. Netflix, cloud storage, music, fitness app, premium shipping, software, news, another streaming service, a free trial he forgot to cancel. Nothing looks outrageous. $11.99, $9.99, $14.99, $19.99, $24.99. That's precisely why subscriptions are dangerous. No single transaction feels important enough to trigger a decision. So let's give Michael a realistic example. Suppose he finds $165 a month in recurring services he either doesn't use or wouldn't purchase again today. That's $1,980 a year. But here's the behavioral trap. Michael doesn't think, I spend $1,980 a year on subscriptions. He thinks, it's only $12. That's called frequency blindness. Your brain evaluates the transaction, but ignores the repetition. The solution isn't cancel everything. It's a much better question. Would I buy this again today? If the answer is no, why is the charge still active? And there's another reason this matters. The FTC has long warned consumers to read the terms of free trials and recurring charges, because what feels like a one-time decision can become an ongoing payment. The leak isn't the subscription. It's automatic renewal without renewed intention. And now Michael has discovered something important. Some leaks are created by purchases. Others are created by inertia. Which brings us to something sitting in almost every American grocery cart. Michael buys the same cereal every week, same detergent, same paper towels, same household products. Why? Because that's the brand he's always bought. Now, this is where a bad financial video would say, always buy store brands. Don't. That's too simplistic. Some store brands are excellent, some aren't. And preferences matter. If you genuinely prefer the premium product, the premium may be worth paying. The economic question is different. What exactly am I receiving for the premium? Suppose Michael discovers that on a basket of basic household products, he can save roughly $80 a month by switching only the items where he can't tell a meaningful difference. That's $960 a year. But notice the method. He didn't become a cheapest possible shopper. He ran an experiment. Test, compare, keep the winner. That's the framework. Not cheap equals good, but value equals benefit divided by cost.
This is a crucial distinction, because the goal isn't to eliminate every premium, it's to stop paying a premium for things you don't value. And the same principle becomes much more powerful when the product being sold isn't convenience, but protection. You're standing at checkout. You just bought a $1,500 appliance. The salesperson says, for another $249, you can protect it for 3 more years. It sounds reasonable. You're not buying a warranty. You're buying peace of mind. But economically, it's a bet, and the seller knows something you may not. The probability of failure, the expected repair cost, the exclusions, the deductible, and the economics of the contract. The FTC specifically advises consumers to check whether an extended warranty duplicates existing coverage, what repairs are actually covered, deductibles, limits, and the claims process. It also notes that setting aside money for repairs can sometimes be a better alternative. So instead of asking, do I want protection? Michael asks 3 questions. How likely is failure? How expensive would the repair be? Could I comfortably absorb the repair myself? That's behavioral economics, because fear makes uncertain future costs feel larger than they actually are. And sometimes the warranty is absolutely worth buying. For a financially fragile household, transferring a catastrophic risk can make sense. But sometimes you're paying hundreds of dollars to insure against a loss you could comfortably absorb. The lesson isn't never buy warranties. It's don't buy peace of mind before calculating the price of peace of mind. And now Michael notices something interesting. The same psychology is hiding inside his pocket. Michael's phone still works. The camera is good. The screen is fine. The apps run. But a new model arrives. Better camera, better processor, new design, new color, new AI feature. Suddenly, his 3-year-old phone feels ancient. This is where financial advice often becomes ridiculous. Because yes, sometimes upgrading is rational. A failing battery can matter, security support matters, work requirements matter, a broken phone matters. So Michael asks, does my current phone still work? Is the battery or other component replaceable? Does the new device solve a real problem I have? If yes, upgrade. If not, wait. Because the question isn't, can I afford the new phone? It's, what problem am I paying $800 to solve? If there isn't one, Michael may have just avoided another unnecessary purchase. But what if the thing draining Michael's wealth isn't something he buys? What if it's something that quietly takes a percentage of the wealth he already has? That's where this gets serious. Meet Linda. She's 55. She has $300,000 invested. Her advisor charges roughly 1% annually. Linda hears 1%. That sounds tiny until you convert it into dollars. 1% of $300,000 is $3,000 a year. And that's before considering what those dollars could have earned. This is why investment fees are different from a $20 subscription. A subscription costs you once. An investment fee can reduce the amount of money compounding for you year after year. The SEC's investor guidance specifically warns that seemingly small ongoing fees can have a major effect over time because fees reduce the money remaining in the portfolio to earn returns. The SEC's illustration shows that on a hypothetical $100,000 investment growing at 4% annually for 20 years, a 1% annual fee can reduce the ending value substantially compared with a 0.25% fee.
But here's the nuance. This is not financial advisors are scams. An advisor may provide planning, behavior management, tax coordination, estate planning, or other value that is worth paying for. The correct question is, what am I receiving for this fee? And is the total cost justified by the service I actually use? Because a 1% fee isn't just 1% of today's money. It's potentially a percentage of money that could have compounded tomorrow. That's a much bigger number. And now we reach a leak that looks completely different. It isn't about wasting money. It's about not having enough cash when life happens. Your car needs a repair, $600. Your refrigerator dies, $900. Your dentist says you need unexpected work, $700. None of these events are necessarily financial disasters, but if you don't have cash available, they can become debt. And suddenly, the original $600 expense is no longer just $600. It may sit on a credit card. It may generate interest. It may interfere with the next bill. It may force you to delay something else. So one of the smartest uses of money saved from these leaks isn't necessarily investing it immediately. Sometimes it's building a cash buffer, because the objective of an emergency fund isn't to make you rich. It's to stop an ordinary emergency from becoming an expensive financial chain reaction. That changes the philosophy of this entire video. We're not trying to maximize every possible investment return. We're trying to improve the financial system around you. And one of the biggest leaks in that system is surprisingly easy to recognize. You pay for speed, again and again and again. Michael orders food delivery. It's not because he's lazy. He's busy. He's tired. It's raining. The restaurant is 15 minutes away. So he pays for convenience. Nothing wrong with that. The problem begins when convenience becomes automatic. Let's say the extra delivery-related cost, fees, tips, markups, and other premiums, averages $20 twice a week. That's $2,080 a year. Again, don't hear, never order delivery. That's not the lesson. The lesson is, keep convenience you consciously choose. Cut convenience you automatically choose. If Michael genuinely values those meals, keep them. But perhaps he discovers that half of them weren't worth the premium. Now he's not living worse. He's simply making the choice consciously. And this is the theme running through every leak so far. The goal isn't less life, it's less unconscious spending. Now we reach the most controversial item, because this one isn't sold as a product, it's sold as a dream. Michael buys lottery tickets, not because he expects to become rich. He knows the odds are terrible. He buys them because it's only $15. And that's the point. If $15 becomes a weekly habit, that's $780 a year. Over 10 years, $7,800 before any investment return. But here's the fair version. If you genuinely enjoy the experience and consciously treat it as entertainment, that's your choice. The economic mistake is calling it an investment. A lottery ticket is entertainment with an extremely unusual payoff distribution. So Michael changes the label, not my wealth building strategy, but $15 of entertainment. That sounds like a small distinction. It isn't. Because once you label a purchase correctly, you can evaluate whether you still want it. And that brings us to the final leak, the one that can hide inside almost everything we've discussed. A $1,200 purchase doesn't feel like $1,200 anymore. It feels like only $100 a month. A $4,000 purchase becomes only $166 a month. A $40,000 car becomes only $699 a month. The psychology is obvious. We naturally find it easier to evaluate a small recurring payment than a large total price. But a monthly payment is not a price, it's a schedule.
The CFPB's guidance on auto loans emphasizes understanding what is actually included in the payment, while its BNPL research shows how installment payment products can turn purchases into smaller scheduled payments. So before Michael buys something, he asks, what's the cash price? What's the total amount I'll pay? What are the interest and fees? Would I still buy it if I had to pay the full amount today? That last question is powerful. Because if $1,200 feels too expensive when viewed as $1,200, but suddenly feels affordable when divided into 12 payments, the payment schedule may be changing your perception of the purchase, not its economics, just your perception. Now, here's where this video is different. Michael doesn't go home and cancel every subscription. He doesn't sell his car. He doesn't stop eating at restaurants. He doesn't buy the cheapest cereal. He doesn't refuse every warranty. He doesn't throw away his phone, and he doesn't fire his financial advisor just because a fee exists. Instead, he divides his spending into 3 categories. Keep, things that genuinely improve his life. Question, things he likes but may be overpriced. Delete, things he doesn't use, forgot about, or wouldn't buy again. That's the entire philosophy. Not spend nothing, but know why you're spending. Because wealth isn't created by saying no to everything, it's created by becoming very deliberate about the things you say yes to. Now give the viewer the system. Take any recurring expense, any payment, any financial decision. Ask 4 questions. Do I actually use it? Not, could I use it? Do you use it? Would I buy it again today? This is the most powerful question, because today's decision shouldn't automatically be controlled by yesterday's decision. Is there a cheaper substitute that gives me almost the same result? Not necessarily the cheapest, just cheaper without sacrificing something you actually value. Where would this money go if I stopped spending it? Because this is the question most save money videos forget. Money shouldn't just disappear from one category. It should be redirected. Emergency savings, high interest debt, retirement, investments, a future purchase, whatever matters most to you. The sequence becomes identify, question, cut, redirect, compound. Let's return to Michael. After reviewing everything, suppose he identifies roughly car replacement habit, $2,400 a year, subscriptions he doesn't use, $1,500, brand premiums he doesn't value, $960, unnecessary warranty/service contracts, $400, premature phone upgrades, $500, investment costs he can reasonably reduce, $1,200, convenience spending he doesn't value, $1,000, lottery habit, $780, financing-related unnecessary costs, $900, other recurring leaks, $800. That's approximately $10,440 per year. But here's the important part. Michael does not cut all $10,440 because some of those purchases make his life better. He decides to keep about $2,500 for conveniences, entertainment, and products he genuinely values. That leaves roughly $7,940 per year that he can redirect. And suddenly the story changes. This isn't about becoming miserable to save $7,940. It's about discovering that some of the money was already there. It was simply going somewhere Michael wasn't paying attention to. Now, imagine Michael redirects $7,940 per year, not as a promise, not as a guaranteed investment return, just as an illustration. If he invests that amount at the end of each year and hypothetically earns an average 7% annual return, the contributions could grow to roughly $109,700 after 10 years and around $333,000 after 20 years. Those numbers are illustrations, not predictions. Markets don't deliver a guaranteed 7%. Returns vary. Taxes, inflation, and investment costs matter. But that's not actually the important part. The important part is this. The $7,940 didn't come from a promotion. It didn't come from a second job. It didn't come from winning the lottery. It came from decisions Michael was already making. He simply changed the destination. And that's the hidden power of small financial decisions.
Remember Michael at the beginning? He thought he was careful with money. And he wasn't completely wrong. He wasn't financially reckless. He simply had dozens of decisions running on autopilot. The car, the subscriptions, the brand premium, the warranty, the phone, the investment fee, the emergency buffer, the convenience, the lottery, the monthly payment illusion. None of these individually destroyed his finances. That's what makes them dangerous, because financial damage doesn't always arrive as a catastrophe. Sometimes it arrives as $12.99, then $19.99, then $50, then $100, then it's only $700 a month. And eventually, years have passed. The real lesson isn't spend less. It's look twice. Look at the payment. Look at the total cost. Look at the frequency. Look at the opportunity cost. Look at what you're actually receiving. And most importantly, look at where the money goes after it leaves your account. Because wealth isn't built by saying no to everything. It's built by knowing what deserves a yes. And sometimes the money you're looking for isn't hiding in your next paycheck. It's already leaving your bank account. You just haven't looked twice. Identify. Question. Cut. Redirect. Compound. Your money doesn't need more motivation. It needs more attention.